Welcome to Book Huddle. I'm your host, Karen Reader with Readgab. Today, our guest is author Erin Stewart. She writes for young adult and middle grade. And so, the book that we're going to talk about today is The Forgotten Magic of Zoey Turner. And so, I'm really excited about this. We have some great topics that we're going to address. But first, I wanted to give Erin a minute. Can you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, separate from being an author.
Sure. So I live in Utah. I have three kids, one who is graduating high school in about a week, which is insane to me that I have a daughter who's
Right.
graduating high school because
Oh,
I feel like I'm still like a teenager. So it's crazy
yes.
to me that I have that. I also have a very needy golden doodle. She'll probably come to this window or at some point and look in and look really sad, like she's not getting
Oh.
any attention. She gets lots of attention, but it's never.
Don't believe her.
Yeah, don't believe her. Let's see, when I'm not writing, I love hiking, which is great in Utah. I live near mountains, so there's always a new trail to try out. So that's something I do. And when I am writing, my favorite snack is hot tamales. I can put them away. So
Me and one of my roommates used to always go out for hot tamales and slushies. No, what are they called at 7-Eleven? Slurpees. We'd always
oh,
go out for hot tamales and Slurpees. That
oh,
was
that sounds like a wild combination. I'll have to try
right.
that.
It was just like our perfect snack.
Oh, funny. Yeah, I eat a lot of them.
Tamales in a long time. I need to go get some. When we road trip, my husband always wants cinnamon bears, and that
Oh,
just reminds him of road tripping. And so
isn't
I
that funny how you
those,
have road trip foods? I have road
right?
trip foods too. Yeah.
Yeah, you just those it has to be, or your road trip
Yeah.
isn't complete,
And
right?
you can't have it any other time. It's like that's the road
Yeah,
trip.
that's the road trip food.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, absolutely. All right, so for our author icebreaker, we're going to do Magic Tree House. I think so many people are familiar with this. It's got hundreds of books out there, but the kids travel space and time by opening a book. So where and when would you go and why?
I love this question because I love Magic Tree House. My son, he's 8, and I are actually reading
Oh,
through
okay.
some of the series right now, and he loves it. And so I love this question, and I'm so boring because I think I would go back to where I grew up and when the time and place when I was a child. And that's kind of boring and maybe cheating because there's so many cooler places to pick, but I am fascinated more than anything. I am fascinated by what makes us us
Yes,
and the events and the places and the people that shape us. And I'm thoroughly convinced that it's the small little day-to-day moments that do that more than anything. And
right,
so I would love to go back to when I was a kid. Now knowing how I'm going to turn out,
right.
um, I'd love to go back and see those things and look at them and marvel at the little things I didn't notice that were shaping me. And I think that's why I write contemporary fiction instead of high fantasy or anything like that, is because I just am fascinated by these everyday moments that make us who we are. And I'd love to go back and see how I became who I
Right.
am.
And you'd get such a different viewpoint because not only is it yourself, that you had that experience, but you're
Yeah.
remembering how many years later. And so
Yes.
different things over the years
Yeah.
have affected how we remember. And so, yeah, I've often thought, I wonder if I saw that different, if I would see it differently, if it would be different as
Yeah.
somebody
Or when you ever
looking.
go back to like some place you lived as a kid and this building or this place was huge in your
Yes.
mind, but then you see it and you're like, oh, it's just like a tiny
Oh,
church or it's just a small park. But in
right.
your mind, it was like this wild place. And yeah, so it would be interesting to me to go back to those places for me.
Did you also grow up in Utah?
No, I grew up in Northern Virginia. So where we lived, it was near DC, but also very like heavily wooded and kind of country.
Yes.
You mentioned you'd been back to Virginia, so like you can be in DC and 20 minutes later you can be in horse country,
Right.
So
Right.
yeah.
And even like in DC, we lived there for my husband's master's. He was going to George Mason.
Uh-huh.
And all of a sudden you'd see foxes running across the road or
Oh
deer.
yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you're just getting off the
Yeah.
beltway and there's this deer just running through
Yeah.
this bit of forest that still exists. Yes,
Yeah. So I grew up
it's a
there,
bit
and so we had
amazing.
like a very wooded backyard. So my backyard was like, every fantasy land to me, like playing out there. I could create worlds. So I grew up kind of playing in the woods and going down by the creek and just escaping into nature. And I really love that. That's why I like getting out into the mountains here. It feels a little bit like that. So
Oh, beautiful.
yeah.
Love it so much. Can you give us just an elevator pitch? Tell us what The Forgotten Magic of Zoey Turner is about.
Sure. Here's the cover. I'll show you guys the cover.
It's beautiful.
Um, so, The Forgotten Magic of Zoey Turner is about a girl named Zoey whose father passed away pretty suddenly and tragically. And that has left her feeling scared. She's scared of a lot of things that she used to do and scared of the world in general. She has a lot of anxiety about things because she's worried
Right.
that something
Like
else.
a crippling fear. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So her world has shrunk down into things that she feels are safe, going not so far from her house, not swimming in the deep end of the pool, not riding her bike, not going to school. Her world has really shrunk down. But the one place that she really feels safe still is in books. She loves books, and so did her dad. And so she is on a quest to get a book signed, her dad's favorite fantasy book by their favorite fantasy author. But at the book signing, she has a panic attack because there's so many people and she hasn't been this far from her house in a long time. So she doesn't get her book signed, but she does get a pencil. And she starts writing stories with that pencil. And every story she writes starts coming true. And so she sets out to write her happily ever after, where she doesn't have to be scared because in the end, bad things don't happen to the good people in books. So she
Right.
wants a fairy tale ending. And she sets out to write this story where she can be brave and doesn't have to be scared anymore.
Right. I love that. And who determines your story? Are you
Right.
in charge of your story, or is it, the effect of other people and their choices? Who's in
Yeah.
charge of your story? And the other thing I love so much, and generally I don't love like loose ends in books. I want everybody to be wrapped in a nice neat package at the end, and the author has told me what happens, but I loved that there's this feel as you read the book that you're like, is this pencil really magic? And she's
Right.
wondering this throughout the book. Is it
Right.
magic? Is it real? And then at the end, it's like, doesn't matter because the themes are just there and they're great. And
Yeah.
so creating your own magic and
Yeah.
having that she used to have with her dad, right? And so tell me, why did you decide to write somebody who has anxiety?
So when I was young, I had a lot of anxiety, similar to what Zoe experiences. It's based a lot on my own experience with anxiety. Although when I was a kid, we didn't really use that term. Anxiety is kind of a newer term that we're using to explain what's going on in our brains when we have these kind of chronic, debilitating fears. And so I'd actually written a book. I wrote this. I write usually young adult books. So I usually write for teens. That's kind of my bread and butter. So this is my first book for younger kids. And I wrote this book about my experience with anxiety as a teenager. But it's kind of dark and it's really raw and gritty, which is good for teenagers. But I just was in this mindset of thinking about my anxiety. And I thought about how when I was younger, anxiety looked different. It didn't look like it did as a teenager, as an adult. It looked more like fear. It
Right.
looked like scared of life. And I was. I mean, my mom talks about how a leaf would fall on my head and I'd be like, what is it? Everything was scary to me. And so I wanted to write a story about kind of that part of childhood where you do have these fears because you're realizing that life has some dangerous parts,
Right.
but you're also clinging to this magic and make believe of everything's going to be okay, everything works out in the end, fairy tale endings. And
Right.
so I wanted to write a story that looked at both of those things and how you can live with both. You can
Right.
live with fear and magic. And the thing that Zoe realizes throughout the book is not that life is a perfectly safe place, because that's just not true. She realizes that you can survive and life can be okay with friends and a little bit of magic and a good book, and there are some things that can help you face your fears instead of get rid of them, because that for most people getting rid of our fears is not going to happen. We just have to learn to live with them.
Yeah. It's just not realistic.
Yeah.
Like for me, some fears, there's just not a need for me to approach. Like for me, being afraid of snakes.
Yeah.
I just see no need to
Yeah.
overcome that fear. Like my sister-in-law is like, you've just got to come hold one. That really helps me.
Oh
And I'm like,
no, why? No.
nope, nope,
Yeah.
not gonna do that.
Yeah.
So, but I guess to some extent, I've got to overcome it.
Yeah, it's not
Similarly,
overcoming to the point of not being scared. It's doing
right,
it anyway, even though you're scared.
right,
And
yes.
that's
I still go
so,
hiking even
yeah,
though I know there's snakes
there
around.
might be a snake. Yeah.
Yes,
There's a line actually towards the end of the book that's so simple, but it's one of my favorite lines that I wrote.
yes.
she's going back to school at the end of the book. She hasn't been going to school, but she's trying it out. She's going to try to face this fear. And her friend Derrick, that she's met through this process, turns to her and is like, "Are you scared?" And she was like, "Yeah, but I'm okay." And
Right.
it's so, such a simple, nothing line, but to me, it gets to
Yes.
the heart of like, yes, I'm scared, but I'm doing it
Yes.
anyways, and I'm going to be okay.
And I think that's so powerful that
Yeah.
sometimes we just have to keep going in life and it's okay to still be afraid. There's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with fears.
Yes.
And I'm not going to be the one to force somebody through the fear. She had to choose, right?
Yes.
Her
For sure.
mom, her mom was concerned for sure,
Yes.
because, who wouldn't be concerned if you can't leave the block that you live on?
Yeah.
But she knew that it had to be about Zoey. Zoey has to make the choices, and we have
Yeah.
to decide when we're ready. I mean, with help and encouragement from others, but you know, somebody has to be ready to
Yeah.
face the fear.
And as parents, sometimes we're like, you just want to fix the fear, right? Don't
Yes.
worry. It's not scary. Let me tell you why it's not scary, and you're wrong that you're scared. That just tells a kid that there's something wrong with them when there
Yeah.
isn't. Fears are
Right.
normal, like you said, and so Zoe learns that it's okay that she's scared. So,
Right. Right. Yeah. And I think about that's why I always go back to my snake fear. You know what I mean? That's not one that it really matters whether or not I deal
yeah.
with
Yeah.
it because whatever. But I can tell you, I would not be happy if somebody else decided to help me overcome that fear because they took it upon themselves to shove it in my face.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and so I always go back to that I'm like, okay, I've got to understand that my kids' fears are as real to them as this for me. And
Yeah.
so while they have certain things that I need them to overcome in a way, or not overcome, but learn to live life in a way
Yeah.
that's manageable, I still need to respect the fear.
Right. Yeah. It's a real thing.
Right. Just because it's not one that I understand and cope with
Yeah.
doesn't make it less real. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's why I wanted to write about it from a child's perspective, a younger kid, is because it was not helpful to me when parents, or my parents were well-meaning, but,
Yes.
and or other adults would say, it's not scary, or don't worry, or, oh, you're just such a worrier. And
Right.
that always felt like a flaw with myself. And it wasn't. It was just something I needed to learn to live with, just like anyone learns to live with the way their brain works. So,
Right. Right. I'm reading a book right now that constantly the girl is told, "What's the matter with you? What's wrong
oh,
with
yeah.
you?" And nobody
Oh,
wants to hear that.
oh.
Right. Right. So
Yeah.
tell us about Derrick, good old Tuna.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's
So,
able to be there for her in a way because he has some of his own struggles, but they don't immediately connect. Like at
no.
first, they're just like, oh,
Yeah.
what? Almost like what's wrong with you, right? That it's
Right. Yeah.
like something's wrong with you and I don't want to hang out.
Yeah. So Derrick, aka Tuna, is what the other kids at school have nicknamed him, and she thinks he's kind of a weird kid. I mean,
Right.
that's kind of her initial impression of him, and but she knows he knows a lot about magic and a lot about fantasy, and so she goes to him to be like, "Hey, everything I write with this pencil is happening. You know everything about fantasy and magic? Help me figure it out." And he's
Right.
like, at first he's like, "You're that's crazy," but
Right,
then she
right. Kind of like her response to him. Okay, you're
yes,
weird.
yeah, you're weird. And so she writes a story that he says, well, if you can make this happen in a story, I'll believe it. And it happens. And so then he's like, oh my gosh, you have a magic pencil. We have to figure this out. So then he's
Yes.
all in and he's like all about, figuring out the hero's journey and the talisman and all the fantasy tropes. And he's all about it. So they become reluctant friends, partners in this detective work of figuring out the
Yes.
pencil. But I loved writing Derrick because he also has fears, and they're very different than Zoe's fears.
But no, that's real.
Oh, yeah, very real. And his fears are about people. He has some social anxiety, is what we would call it nowadays.
Yes.
Um, and to Zoe, that makes no sense.
Right.
And there's a point in the book where she realizes my fears are real to me, his fears are real to him. It doesn't matter if I understand why he's scared of someone looking at him weird. That's not something she fears. She fears more kind of like death and danger and things like that. He fears people looking at him weird or
Yeah.
looking weird in front of people. And so I liked that they had different anxieties that they didn't understand about each other, but they understand the underlying you're afraid and it's very real to you.
Right.
And they connect over that and their love of magic. And I think a lot of times kids with anxiety love fantasy because they get to leave behind their
Yes.
fears for a minute. They get to escape into this world where the good guys are going to win no matter how many dragons there are. That good guy's going to win. And that feels safe. And when I was a kid, that felt safe to me. And for Zoey and Derrick, it feels safe. And
Yes.
so, yeah, I loved writing him. He was a character that I
Yes.
wasn't quite sure at the beginning who he was going to be. And the more he developed, I was like, I love this kid. He's so
Right?
great.
And
Yeah.
I do love that at the beginning, his choices don't affect her in a good way.
Yeah.
And he doesn't understand what's going on, but he's just like, no, I know to cope with my social anxiety, I have to follow rules, and these are the
Yeah.
rules, and it must be so.
Yeah.
And
And
so,
Zoe has rules too. Their rules are just
yes,
different. Derek's rules are don't do certain things in front of people, live a certain way so you don't look embarrassed. Zoe's rules are don't leave the block, don't go swimming in the deep end. So they both have these rules to try to keep themselves from being scared, and I just love that they find each other and become friends. So
yes, it's so fantastic. And one thing I love to tell everybody, kids and adults, is you don't need to understand somebody to be kind to them.
yeah,
Be great to, if you have the chance to learn about it because it helps with that empathy, but you
yeah,
don't need to understand it. And
yeah. That's
even
a
to
really
be the
great point.
friend. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
But as the friendship develops, they're able to learn about each other and see
yeah,
those things. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
All right, so let's talk Lena. So this is a friend that she has so been there for her for so
Yeah,
long and through all of her crippling fears. But now it's starting to hurt Zoe to see Lena growing up and moving on.
yeah. So, that happens, right? Right around the summer of sixth grade, friendships kind of are stressed by some people develop and mature at a faster rate and are ready for things at a faster rate. There's a scene where Lena is flat ironing her hair. They both have kind of wild hair, and Lena's flattening her hair, and Zoe's like, why are you flattening your hair? I love your hair. And it doesn't make sense to Zoey, and because she's not quite there yet on the maturity scale and the growing up scale as Lena is, and so Zoey feels like she's kind of getting left behind, and it doesn't help that her fears limit her in what she can do. There's a couple scenes where Lena wants to do things with her new friends, and she invites Zoey. She tries to
Yes.
include her initially, and Zoe's like, "Oh, I'm not touching a bowling ball, or I'm not swimming in the going off the high dive." Like there's these things Zoe won't do, and Lena's kind of like, well, I can't wait for you anymore.
Yeah.
I have to grow up, and you're not willing to. And so that really pushes Zoe to feel this urgency of like, I have to be brave, and I have to be brave now, or I'm going to lose my best friend. It was a tricky friendship to write because Lena loves her and has been
Yes.
there for her and has been her advocate and her kind of bouncer, out in
Yes.
public. She's like, leave my friend alone. And
Right. She doesn't want to ditch her because she's weird. Because so
no,
often in books, we see that theme. The lifelong friend, when the friend's growing up and changing and the main character is not,
yeah.
they get ditched.
Yeah,
But
no,
Lena's not ditching her.
she wants to pull her along. She's
Yes.
like, "Come on, be with me. You're my best friend. I need you."
Yeah.
And Zoe's got these fears, and so it was kind of a struggle to write that relationship in a way that felt realistic, where it was like they have this great foundation, they love each other, they want to be in each other's lives, but they also have these hindrances that are her fears and Lena moving on. It's making it hard on them, and that is so typical in that kind of sixth grade 12-year-old age. I
Yes.
remember that where everyone's changing and life is changing and you're trying so hard to hang on to the things you don't want to change. And it's a really hard time. And I was trying to reflect that in their dynamic.
Yes. Yes. I like that it becomes an issue with her magic pencil at one point that she's like, okay, this problem that I've got with my friend that Lena doesn't get really, really upset at her until she's like, you don't get to write my story to Zoe.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
That this becomes a huge issue that Zoe thinks she can fix everything. Well, Zoe's in charge of writing her story and her story alone, not somebody else's story.
Right.
So even when she's well-intentioned about it, it's like, no, you don't get to be in charge of somebody else's story.
Yeah.
Just,
And that's when the problems start for Zoe, is when she starts writing stories to handle everyone else's lives.
yeah.
And then things don't go the way she thinks they're going to go. So,
And to her, it's just like, well, it's how they affect me. So she's really just
Yeah.
either she's well intentioned or she's like, my story involves so many other people. So how can I affect my own life? Okay, I'm
Yeah.
going to change things with them.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, she's grappling with some pretty big, identity and life questions here while writing these stories about how much we do get to affect other people and how what we want affects what other people want. And yeah, she's grappling with all that.
so part of often for friendships, like we were talking about, moving on and growing up, and some people are ready to mature and more makeup and boys or whatever,
Yeah.
however they're ready to mature. A lot of the times it's the magic, the people who are ready to mature, that they're like, I'm ready to leave behind the magic. So
Yeah.
let's talk about magic in life, whether it's magic that's real or it's like, yeah, like what about the magic that you're created like? Is magic something that is just for kids?
Oh,
About magic in life.
absolutely not. Yeah, absolutely. That's an easy question. Yeah, for me, magic, I mean, I love magic and there's magic. And I think the point of this book is whether this pencil is actually doing this magic or not, something magical is happening. And whether that's inside Zoey or inside the friendship between her and Derrick or inside Lena maturing and growing up, those are all magical things that are happening and we don't call them magic in everyday life, but to me that's what they are. They're like these magical, unexplainable things, events, moments that are happening. And to me, the more we can see them as magical and look for the magic, the more we're opening ourselves up to possibility. And I love it. Like I just love believing in things. I love Santa Claus. I love all those. I love believing in magical things that make my life more interesting and more open to possibility. And
Right.
yeah,
And there's often still magic even when you start to grow up, that just that feeling, those
yeah,
memories, the
yeah,
joys, yeah, the
yeah.
magic that you create in life. And yeah, I didn't think about it going in reading it, but the title makes so much more sense after you've read the book.
Oh yeah, people
Because
always ask me why I titled that. I'm like, you got to read the book.
you
I
got to
can't
read the book
explain
and then
it.
you'll get it
Yeah,
because she had that joy and that magic and those
yeah.
experiences with her father. And
And with her dad, she felt like there was magic everywhere. But
yes,
even on her little street, everything felt magical to her because he saw it as magical and believed it was magical. And without him at the beginning of the book, she's like, there is no magic. It's
right.
just life.
It's
And
just
by the
like,
end
and
of the
it's
book,
scary,
yeah,
and let's just be careful.
yeah, and she can't see it. And then by the end of the book, again, she's seeing the magic again. And whether it's in the pencil or just in the world and in life, like you said, it doesn't matter where the magic's coming from. There is magic.
Yes.
And I get
And
tingles talking about it. I
yes,
just
it's
like,
joyful, right? It
yeah,
is. And
yeah,
so embrace it in the level that you want it because it's joyful.
exactly. And I feel like if you're open to seeing it as magic and being like, wow, the world is a magical,
It's
amazing place, it just,
wonderful.
you're going to benefit so much from opening yourself to that possibility.
Right. You'll just, yeah, you'll be happier. Your interactions with other people will be happier. And sometimes there's magic that we don't realize.
Oh, yeah.
Because at the end of the day, something that she finds out, it's like, oh, it's so cool. But did you need to know? Is your relationship really that much better because you know the secret?
Yeah.
Right? Like
Yeah.
sometimes it's cool to know the secret, but sometimes your relationships are still good, even though you don't know everybody else's secrets.
Yeah. And I think talking about when you're saying like maturing, we hit that threshold where kids mature and they get into other things. I think you're right. That letting go of that magic is a big part of that. And I just want kids to hold on to it and be like, it's okay to hold on to it. That doesn't make you a little kid. That
Right.
makes you full of wonder and open to possibility. And I'm an adult and I cling to that possibility. So like that's not something that has to go away when you mature. Hopefully
Right.
it's something that just evolves as you
Yes.
mature.
You might think of it differently, but
Yeah.
yeah. One of the things that I love to tell children, and I'll tell them, I've had so many opportunities to teach in my life. And currently, it's the funniest thing. I never thought I would want to teach. I always said preschool and kindergarten teachers deserve a special place in,
Oh, yeah.
right? Right. So here
Yeah.
I am teaching preschoolers, 4 and 5 year
Oh,
olds right now, because I only wanted to work part-time, and that's the job that worked out. And I used to teach sixth grade, I've taught high school. And one thing that I always talk to people about is I just want you to be happy in your own skin. I want you to have confidence being you and not worrying about what anybody else says or has going on. And if you can do that, kind of like this magic, embrace it in a way that is good for you, but just be happy being you. Don't worry about what everybody else has going on, what they all think.
Yeah.
So in the beginning, Zoey, we've touched on this a lot, but Zoey's very, very black and white. And
Yes.
so let's talk about the importance of this because I was just barely talking to an author and this was the big theme of our book. So go and listen to my one by Stuart Gibbs that sometimes, people think things are so black and white with issues, and that's the only way to approach it. This is the right
Yeah.
way. This is the wrong way. And
Mhm.
so with Zoey, she has that at the beginning, everything's black and white.
Mhm.
What's the benefit of letting go of black and white?
Yeah, Zoe does, but so do all the characters in the book. Lena
Yes,
is very
yes,
black and white. She's like, you either have to be doing these things with me or we can't be friends. And Derrick thinks, I have to live by these rules or I can't function in society. Everyone has these definitive lines. Um, I think the advantage to letting go of some of that black and white is that obviously life is not black and white.
right.
There can be shades of gray in everything. And all the characters in this book kind of realize that they don't have to do it exactly this certain way to be right or to be good or to be safe.
Yes,
They can live with a little bit of fear. Lena doesn't have to have Zoey come to every activity to still be her best friend. They can live with that. And for Zoey, the black and white really came from good or bad. Life is scary and bad, or it's magical and good. And it's neither one of those things. It's somewhere in the middle. And for Zoey to realize that also makes her realize that she's neither good nor bad. She's somewhere in the middle. There's a point
right,
in that book where she's like, wait, am I the villain? And
right,
she kind
right,
of is being a villain at one
right,
point. Yeah, she kind of is. You're kind of, as a reader, you're kind of like, Zoey, come on. Like, what
right,
are you
right.
doing? But like she's good, she's a good kid, but like we all have those shades of gray, and the more we accept that and just be like, okay, this is also part of life and part of me, the less stuck we get
Right.
on trying to be a certain thing or making life go a certain way. For me, that's been so valuable, especially with my struggles with anxiety. I still struggle with anxiety. It looks different now that I'm an adult, but it's a struggle for me. And when I get out of my black and white thinking of things have to be a certain way, my anxiety goes way down.
Right.
I think that's a big source of my anxiety is thinking it has to be this way. And then I get anxious if it's not. So letting go of that for me, I'm still learning that lesson. I'm
Yes.
43 now and I'm still learning not to think in black and white. So yeah.
Yes. So yeah, I think that we can still hold to our values or our beliefs, our rules. They can
Yeah.
still be there
Yeah.
while we let it go, right? While we realize I cannot live in a black and white way. I can still be passionate and still be like, these are important, but I've got to learn to function.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I love that. I
And
think
it's a lesson. I mean, this is why I love children's books and probably why you love children's books.
yes.
Is these lessons, like, yes, I'm writing about kids, but these are things we're relearning 1,000 times throughout
Right.
our lives. Like it's to find the magic, to live in the gray, to accept who we are. Like all the themes of children's books are things that I need every day. So it's like
Yes.
I love them.
Yes, so much. Yeah, I actually today is preschool graduation. And so I'm going to be speaking to the kids and we do some opening remarks. It's at a big preschool with lots and lots of teachers and lots of kids, but we do this graduation and I'm like, I want to address my remarks to the students and the adults because
Mhm.
you need to all remember these things too.
Yes.
Like you were saying, all of the lessons of children's books, you'll be a better parent, a better teacher, wherever you interact with the children, or even if you
Better
don't have
human.
children,
Yeah.
yeah, you'll be a better individual
Yeah.
from these lessons because the lessons of childhood are not gone because we're adults.
No. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
And I
beautiful.
found when I was writing the book, I needed the things I was learning that Zoe was teaching me and Derrick was teaching me throughout the book. I was like, I was learning too about, oh yeah, that's true, or this. So I'm always learning from my characters and from books. So
Absolutely. So what's next for you coming up? Is it more middle grade, young adult? What are you working on now?
Yeah, so I actually just had a new middle or a new young adult come out in March. It's called Every Borrowed Beat. That came out in March, so it's been a busy year because Zoe came out in January.
Yes, yes. Holy cow.
Busy year for me, yeah. And then my daughter's graduating, so I'm like, ah. But actually, my next book to come out will be in, I believe it'll be January. I'm not sure we have a date yet, but it's not a sequel to Zoe Turner, but it's kind of like a similar genre. It's a girl with a magical element in her life that
Right.
helps her understand the world better. And that is called The Mysterious Magic of Lighthouse Lane.
Oh, cool.
And it's about a girl who has really big feelings. And her big feelings are always getting in her way and everyone else's way. And she hates her big feelings. So she actually spends a summer in Prince Edward Island, where Anne of Green Gables took place.
Yes. I love
Yeah,
it
yeah,
already.
yeah, it's so fun to write. I actually went out to Prince Edward Island and lived all the magical moments out
Oh,
there.
cool.
So she goes out there and she is trying to run away from her feelings and run away from people and just not feel anymore. But instead, she finds her grandmother's camera, and her camera helps her see things in a whole new light. So you have to read it
Oh,
to find out. But it was really fun to write, and
that
another magical, is
that
it
is so
magical,
cool.
magical story. So
Right?
yeah.
And I love that. I love that so much. And that you said, I go and I experience the magic of being there. And
Oh,
clearly
it
it's
felt
not
fun.
real magic, but it's magical for you. For me, I'd love to go and feel that. Yeah,
Yeah, it
that's
was
beautiful.
amazing. So, yeah,
All
so
right,
that
so
one will come out early 2026. So
2026. All right. Well, I'll be watching for it.
yeah.
Awesome. So tell us one of your favorite children's book. What is one that you just absolutely love to go back to for whatever the reason?
So I actually pulled one out because I knew you were going to ask this. So I pulled one out. It's kind of not super old, but it was in 2015, and it's called The Thing About Jellyfish by Ali Benjamin. Have you read this?
I have not, and it's like it's kind of
Good.
familiar in the back of the head is what I feel
I mean,
like,
it was a
but
National
I
Book
can't even
Award.
think of what it's about. Yeah, tell me about it.
It's about a girl whose best friend, former best friends, it's very complicated, dies. And it's about grief. It's about her moving on from this grief, but it's told in the form of her trying to figure out something about jellyfish. I can't tell you too much, but I just love it
Right.
because it's told so simply and in such a childlike way, but the truths here, I mean, this is a book every adult should read because the truths you get at in this book are deep, man. They're deep,
Right?
but accessible because of the way it's told. And this is one of the first middle grades I read that made me want to write middle grade, where I read this book and I was like, I want to write a book like this that's told for children, but gets at some really fundamental human truths. So, really highly recommend this book. So,
I feel like middle grade's where it's at for these
oh,
heavy
yeah.
topics like grief.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
I have never read an adult book that can handle it in a way that a middle grade book can teach these powerful topics. Like
Because
never.
I think middle grade books come at it from like the basics. Like,
Right.
let's get back to who we are as human beings and we can all talk about it. We don't have to use big words and interesting, complicated plots. Like, let's just get back to the
Right.
fundamentals. I love that about middle
Right. And then
grade.
the metaphors. And yeah, it
Yeah.
makes me think of, have you read Octopus Moon? It just came out in March. Is
No.
maybe Pyron. And she does a big thing about ocean life and things like that to talk about a child living with depression. And
Oh,
yeah, like it's so there that the metaphors are there and they're just easier to see and embrace and love. And it's so joyful. It
the
really,
amazing thing is when you talk to a kid, if you read a book, alongside or you talk about
yes,
a book with a kid, like they get it.
yes.
They it's not lost on them, these metaphors and this depth. Like they get it. And I
Yes.
love that. So
And it's the best way to approach these big lessons. Because if I sit one of my kids down, or when I was teaching sixth grade, and if I tried to sit one of these older kids down and be like, let's talk about X, whatever this big topic is
that'll
that I
shut a
want.
kid up real fast.
Yes, right. They're going to be like, let's not. That's going to make me uncomfortable, and I have nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
But, for one, older kids are not done with read alouds. and even picture books and things like that because and I've got the age range at my house.
Yeah.
And so I've got a 5-year-old and a couple in the middle and a almost 16-year-old. And so I can sit there and at night we can do read alouds that are the middle grade books and
Yeah.
everybody listens except for the 5-year-old's kind of off, whatever.
Yeah.
And then, but when I read a picture book to everybody, you better believe my 15-year-old's sitting there listening
Yeah.
too, because there's still joy in them and there's still wonderful lessons. And then it's like, rarely do I do it immediately afterwards because then they feel it. They're like, don't ruin the
Yeah.
book, Mom.
Yeah, they're too
But
smart for that. Yeah.
yeah, but later at dinner or in the car, I'm like, hey, what did you feel? What did you think about this? And I'm able to
But
more explain that to
that
them.
was so wild when this happened. Like,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, like yeah. And then let a
I've had a couple
conversation flow.
moms tell me that their kids have read the book and they were like, I didn't even know my kids struggled with any of this, but they read it and then they were like, Mom, I actually like Zoe said it this way and I actually have felt that before. And then they started talking about anxiety and fears. And I love hearing that as an author because it's like
Yes.
they see themselves and then they're like, oh, this is a thing that someone else
Yeah.
is doing.
Right. And it opens it up in a way that they can understand and put words to
Yeah.
having somebody else put words
Yeah.
to
I
it
love
for them.
that.
They're like, hey, and they're like, maybe not that, maybe this, and maybe not
Yeah.
that, but then they can start picking out and discussing and seeing where they relate. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love it
So,
so much. Well,
yeah.
thank you so much for
So much.
taking the time to write this. I think this is an important book to have out there. This is so powerful. And even if a child does not deal with anxiety, it gives us more empathy. And it's just
Oh,
a
yeah.
wonderful book. So thank you for the work that
Thank
you
you.
do. We'll have in the description where people can find you and your books. And yeah, just thanks for being on with us.
Well, thank you so much.